Hello! For the next 24 hours, I will be making foods from Netflix's Bridgerton. I tried to dress for the occasion, hence the very floral, very flowery, pastel-colored dress. Just one of the many things I love about Bridgerton. Something about period dramas, the beauty, the romance, the juicy stuff. They have it all. I will confess, I immediately watched part 1 of season 3 the day it dropped. I am a huge fan of pollen. I love this friend to lovers trope. I'm a sucker for it. What can I say? If you want to talk about Bridgerton, I got all day. But yes, as somebody who has binge watched all seasons as they come out, I've just always wanted to make a video where I kind of just celebrate the beauty that is Bridgerton. If you've watched all the seasons of Bridgerton, including the spin-off with Queen Charlotte, you'll realize they're almost always constantly surrounded by food. Even if they're not eating it, the food is always there. Beautiful platters of food, like full table displays. So I kind of wanted to draw on that a little bit. And especially because I'm seeing a lot of cakes, a lot of biscuits, a lot of tea, both kinds of tea, I thought it'd be fun if we did an afternoon tea situation. Even though historically, afternoon tea wasn't really popularized until the Victorian era, I feel like we're going less for historical accuracy and more for just the Bridgerton universe inspired goodies. A Bridgerton inspired afternoon tea. And I've curated a very special afternoon tea set with a lot of research and some help from the official Bridgerton Guide to Entertaining book. First things first, as always, let's go shopping. Good morning. We are starting off bright and early today because there is a lot to do. So, as mentioned, I have curated a very special afternoon tea set that's going to feature 9 food items and 2 drinks. Does it feel a little ambitious? Absolutely yes, but again, it is Bridgerton. It draws from the Regency era, like upper class, where they kind of go for extravagance. So extravagance it is. To break down these food items a little bit more, I've separated them into 3 categories. The first category is our little like sweet bites. This is where you're gonna get the mini cakes, you know, the cookies slash biscuits. The second category is what I'm calling the showstoppers, essentially my standalone cakes or puddings. And then for our last category, we have the savory bites. So this is where the little tea sandwiches come in. So yes, there is quite a lot to do, and also explains why this has been a week-long process, but I'm excited. I love this kind of stuff. Love making sweets, love baking. I hope you're just as excited as me to see the final spread. I also want to do more of these 24-hour challenges, so if you like them, stick around, subscribe. Would love to hear your thoughts. Starting off with our sweet bites. The first thing we're making today are called these little queen cakes. What's really cool about this one is that there is actually a recorded recipe that dates back to the early 18th century from this book called Court Cookery by Robert Smith. I think it was published in 1725. How cool is that? But also because ingredients like mace and orange flower water might not be the most accessible for most of us, I'm gonna make a modern interpretation of it that hopefully all of you can try making at home. Starting off with some butter, super soft already. Sugar. Now to add in the eggs, one at a time. It's really just like making cupcakes so far, right? Bit of lemon zest. A little heavy-handed on the zest here, just because I love that burst of citrus. Sift in some flour, some salt, baking powder. That's what it looks like so far. The thing that makes these little queen cakes are currants, which for us are raisins. Which if you don't love raisins, I feel like you could totally swap it out for chocolate chips, but for research purposes, we're gonna stick to raisins today. All right, just gonna add all that in there. Wow, that's a lot. Can you imagine soaking this in rum first? That'd be pretty good. And we're just gonna mix that in. There it is, our little queen cake batter. I have this cupcake pan that I've already greased. Gonna scoop this batter in there. Whoop. All right, there you go. Did I make these because they're called little queen cakes and it's kind of like fitting for the Bridgerton theme? Maybe. Into the oven. Should be around 20 minutes or so. So I'm gonna let that cook and we're going to move on to our next treat. All right, 1 down, 8 more to go. The next treat I have planned are some shortbread cookies, which shortbread to me just feels very English. Technically Scottish, but you know, it's in that realm of tea parties and it's just like a very good biscuit to have with tea. And also when I was planning out this menu, I literally scrolled through all seasons of Bridgerton, like every single episode, and essentially took a screenshot every time there was food on screen. And there's this one shot where Daphne's at the table and you just see this spread of desserts behind her. And if you zoom in a little bit, you'll see this plate of what looks like vanilla and chocolate shortbread cookies. So that's what inspired me to make these shortbread biscuits. I actually bought this box of shortbread rounds just so I could have something as a reference. This is what we call culinary research, right? They're fairly big cookies. Look at that. It's like a eye patch. You know, like when you walk past a bakery and it just smells delightfully buttery? That's exactly what this smells like. So buttery, both in flavor and texture. Honestly, you could just buy it and call it a day. But I did make a chocolate version earlier this week. I feel like the key to giving it this like melt in your mouth kind of buttery texture really is using powdered sugar and a lot of butter. So that's what I'm combining here. Beating my butter and my powdered sugar together until there's no lumps anymore. Then I'm slowly sifting in some flour and the cocoa powder. Sifting it is important here because it ensures that your cookie is just buttery smooth. Also adding in some salt to balance it out a little bit. And it's a little bit crumbly at first, but you can slowly see it come together. I'm just using my hand eventually. It looks a little bit like I'm doing pottery, but that's the idea. Once it forms into a dough, I'm just gently rolling it into a log shape, which I then popped into the fridge. And that's what brings me to today. I have my very firm chocolate log, which we're gonna slice up and bake. Cookie for reference. Oh my God. Oh no! Dough is pretty firm. Smells very chocolatey though. But, all right. Sort of uneven, but this one kind of looks like it. Here we are. Chocolate shortbreads ready to go. I think I have 2 minutes left on the queen cakes. Once that's done, we're gonna swap places with these cookies. Excuse me, biscuits. Hot. They look nice though. Got some color on there. Oh, everything just smells so buttery and good. Cookies now going in 15 minutes. All right, let's see if I can unmold these cakes and let it cool. Very hot, but they do look a little more rustic, but it kind of fits the vibe, I feel. They smell like warm, buttery scones. I'm gonna let this cool and then maybe kind of just dust some powdered sugar on there. You remember that moment where a pen kind of eats that little cake and then Colin just stares at her, hyper focused on her lips or something? I'm just saying, this could be it. Moving on to our third treat, I'm making some millefeuille. I had to double check the pronunciation on that. My French Duolingo has helped a little bit, but going back to the most recent season, millefeuille was the only dessert that was verbally mentioned. This is the treat that is Lord Samadani's favorite. And even if Lord Samadani is not our favorite because we greatly prefer John, I love millefeuille. So I have some store-bought puff pastry sheets here that we're going to bake into those iconic layers of the dessert, you know, like the pastry cream, pastry cream, stacked goodness. It's a little bigger than I thought. Oh no, it's perfect. Now to prevent it from rising too much, I'm just going to poke holes into it. Therapeutic, ha 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 ha. Some sugar over there. Just going to cover it up with some parchment paper, some foil. I'm going to use this other baking tray to sort of squish it down. Apply some pressure on there. Because you know how puff pastry, like its namesake, kind of just puffs up like crazy? So this should help kind of maintain it a little bit. Check on this in like 15 minutes. I forgot to say that the cookies are done. This is what they look like. This is dangerous, but they're a little soft right now because they're still hot from the oven. So I'm gonna let them cool a little bit. They become pretty massive. Let's see. Continue cooking until brown. All right, the puff pastry is now ready. This is what it looks like. Oh, that color is exactly what I was looking for. You see that I tried to cut it into 4 rectangles? Oh, it smells. I feel like I've just been smelling butter all day. I'm gonna smell like butter after today. I feel like the thickness looks pretty good. You know how sometimes it's so thick that it's like impossible to eat, but this looks pretty manageable. Now to make sure that it's in even sizes. So let me try. Uniform sizes. Cut off the edge pieces here. That's a good thickness. Excuse me while I take a bite. Gonna try to cut it into 4s. Commit. There we go. Now we have these nice little stacks. This is looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and cut up the rest of these. Pastry cream, on the other hand, I have also made beforehand. A lot of these things just require preparation days in advance. So in this saucepan, I have some milk, sugar, salt. I'm using this special vanilla bourbon that I actually got in France. This is the closest thing I had to vanilla bean. And while that's going, I'm doing the custard base. Egg yolks, some milk, and cornstarch. And the next thing I'm doing here is kind of just like tempering the mixture a little bit, adding in a little bit of the hot milk each time. Once that's all mixed in, I'm just pouring it back into the saucepan. And this next part is the part where it becomes like an arm workout until the mixture thickens like quite considerably. This actually happened like super fast, probably because of the cornstarch. This is also where I'm adding in some butter, which will help with that sort of like velvety smooth. Straining it again because, you know, really want that like silky mouth feel. Silky smooth is the theme of today. Last thing to do is really just to cover it on top with cling wrap so no skin forms. Which brings me to today, where I have just put the pastry cream into this piping bag. It's ready for piping. Okay, so let's try. 1, 2. Oh, moist. Oh, it looks good. There you go. There you go. Milfoy. Oh, I'm so happy. This looks fantastic. Look at that. It is very like precarious though, so maybe I should not be carrying it like that. It also seems a little big, doesn't it? I'm going to half the next ones, but I'll dust this in sugar so you can see what it looks like, the final product. Let me show you the vision. Just dust it on top like so, and that's it. You could put raspberries if you want, but I feel like we already have a lot of berries going on. I'm gonna go ahead and build on the rest, then we can move on to our showstoppers. Oh, this is only the 3rd of the sweet treats. Why does it feel so... I should have built in another day. Okay, our sweet treats are now complete. 3 down, 6 more to go. But this next category is probably my favorite. These are our showstoppers, the table centerpieces. I will be making some very delicious cakes, starting with the lemon cake. If you remember from season 2, this is the lemon cake that the Bridgerton family jeweler is obsessed with. He literally walks into the room and asks,
"Is that cake?"
And just goes straight for it. I love that. I would probably do the same thing. And so, lemon cake it is. So looking at the photo of this lemon cake, it's like a 2-tiered layer cake with some icing and curd in between. Like a layer of icing on the very top, a little bit of decoration. So originally I was almost going to do a pound cake version because I love me a lemon pound cake, but then it felt even more appropriate to make a Victoria sponge. So that's what I ended up doing. Sort of like how I made the Little Queen cakes. I'm just creaming my butter and sugar together, also adding in a bunch of lemon zest. I feel like all these recipes are calling for a lot of lemon zest, which I love. Next thing I'm doing is just adding in some eggs. After it's all mixed in together, that's when I'm adding in the flour, baking powder, and it really just comes together fairly quickly. And again, don't want to overmix it. I'm just scooping all of it straight into my cake pan. And that's pretty much it. Once the batter is in, I'm just giving it a few little love taps and then it's off into the oven. It came out pretty well. Here it is. This is my Victoria sponge. Because it's a 2-layer cake, I'm going to slice this up into halves and make it into a delicious cake. I'm just eyeballing this. Maybe this wasn't the best idea. Woo! I tried to make this layer slightly thicker. Smells very lemony. Could just put icing on this and here and call it a day. But why do that when I can fill it up with some cream cheese icing and some lemon curd? So let me get started on that. Got my cream cheese, powdered sugar, dash of vanilla. This should help thicken it a little bit more, you know, stabilize it a little bit more. Give it a whipping. Yeah, this is sprayed all over. A lot messier than I thought it would be. Look at that consistency. Ooh. Now I'm just going to add in this semi-whipped cream. Make it more luscious. Pour that in here. Looks good. Let's give it a little taste. Ooh, that's nice. Splash of rum maybe? Usually I would make my own curd, but I found this one at the English store. I bought it because it mentioned being around since the 1800s, fruit growers and preservers since 1885. By appointment to Her Majesty the Queen. Maybe it's all marketing, but it worked on me. I'm just excited to see if there's any differences. First layer of sponge, followed by the cream. Look at that. Oh, more maybe? Ha ha ha. This is truly just indulgence, isn't it? Now for the curd. Let me try this. Wait, this is actually quite good. I like the texture. I feel like it has a good balance of like sweet and sour. Now we're just going to layer it on right in there. Oh, what was it that he said? I fancy a good lemon. That's me. Now we're just going to stack this one on. You can see on this side. Oh, look at that. The curd squeezing out. Oh, that is the dream right there. Honestly, pretty happy with how this is turning out. But we're going to finish off by just drizzling on a thin layer of icing. A little bit of milk, a little bit of lemon juice. I feel like we're at the consistency. Shall we? Here we go, moment of truth. Oh my gosh. Okay, just drizzle. Whoa! I'm nervous. I mean, it is a look. If it just drizzles, maybe that's not enough. Oh man, this looks illegal. Illegal. It looks crazy on this side, but once we move it, I think it'll look great. Once the icing kind of settles, we're gonna do a little decorating. Put a lemon on here and right here. Edible flowers, which because it's Bridgerton, I feel like is a must. Oh, schmack purple. Now this is looking like the Featheringtons. Fairly simple slices of lemon, flowers on top. Gonna carefully transfer this onto a different plate and we're gonna move on to our next item, some pudding. I really wanted to make a pudding. If you refer back to the scene that I mentioned earlier with Daphne and that like table of desserts, you have the shortbread, then right next to it you have this very nice looking pudding. Originally I wanted to do like a panna cotta situation, but then when I was reading this book, I found these mango and yogurt molded gelatins, which is part of the section that they dedicated as afternoon tea with the Sharmas. So it is sort of inspired by, you know, the Sharmas like Indian background and hence the mango and the yogurt, almost like a mango lassi. I got to talk to the brilliant Sue, who was the recipe developer for this book. And it was just like really wonderful hearing her process through it all. I also just really liked how she described the recipes in this book as sort of like the Willy Wonka-esque interpretation of Bridgerton foods and just Regency era foods in general. It is very sort of like bright and colorful and fun. Look how beautiful that looks. And because this is a jelly situation that has to chill overnight, I also had to prepare this beforehand. Starting off by just preparing the gelatin, letting it bloom off to the side. Sue did mention that she tried using agar-agar as well for like a vegetarian option, but it most likely will not hold as well. Gelatin is just a little more sturdy, like Colin. I'm also preparing some coconut milk on the other side. So in here, I'm just adding in the coconut milk and some sugar, trying to lightly crumble some saffron pieces in here. But you can almost immediately see how the saffron changes the color of the milk. I have my blender here into which I'm adding in my chopped mango, and then I'm also adding in some yogurt. Now the recipe asks for some thick Indian style yogurt. But here in the cook's note, it actually says that if you cannot find Indian style yogurt, you can substitute by using like a 1-to-1 mixture of plain Greek yogurt and plain American style yogurt. Also adding in my coconut milk mixture that now has this nice tinge of yellow. And off to the side, I actually also heated up my gelatin, so now it's much more liquidy, and I can just add that straight into the mango mixture and blend it again until it's all smoothed out. So this is kind of what it looks like now, like almost like a thicker smoothie consistency, and then letting it sit in the fridge overnight. And here it is right now. I'm praying will unmold safely. Let me get a bowl of hot water and try to release it properly. I have never tried to use silicone molds for pudding before, so let's see. Just going to sink this in there. Oh my gosh, please don't destroy my pudding, please. Oh, it's working. I'm seeing it lift off the sides a little bit. We're gonna try to flip it around. Let's just see. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh my god, extremely jiggly, and I realized I didn't center it well, but oh my god. You don't understand, I was so nervous about these molds. I'm a believer now. It came out so nice. I mean, the bubbles are my fault, but otherwise the shape came out beautifully, and it's very jiggly. Oh my joy. Not a moment to lose here, because we're just going to decorate it once again. I'm gonna do it just like they did it in the book, just some flowers. I don't want to mess with this too much. It's very pretty. Here is our jelly situation. I'm just happy that it turned out well. I guess it's a little mini to be a showstopper, but again, it is to be enjoyed as a whole on its own. I'm gonna put this in the fridge while we move on to the third centerpiece. I feel like I just ran a marathon, but it's only number 6. We have a couple more items to go. The third item in our showstopper category is probably the one that feels the most like a showstopper. It is a lady finger cake. It's also known as a Charlotte cake. There's some discussion on what the actual origins of the Charlotte cake is. I haven't been able to properly fact check this yet, so if you know anything about this, let me know in the comments. But I chose this cake for several reasons. One of them is obviously because of Queen Charlotte. I just wanted to dedicate something to her. Almost went for a bundt cake, which is actually on the dinner table every time Queen Charlotte eats alone in the spin-off. I feel like it's like a good call out to her German origin. But then I saw this ladyfinger cake again at that dessert table, and it just looked so stunning and elegant. And when I found out that its alternative name is Charlotte cake, it just felt like it was meant to be. So that's why we're enjoying a Charlotte cake. And because this Charlotte cake is an icebox cake, I had to get started early yesterday. Beginning with the strawberries. I have a bunch of strawberries, which I am just slicing up and then macerating them in some sugar and lemon juice. You can see that right now there's not that much juice left, but we'll come back in 15 to 20 minutes. And then separately, I'm making sort of what feels like a cheesecake slash tiramisu mixture. I have some mascarpone here that I'm adding some powdered sugar to. I'm just trying to beat that up until it's like light and airy. That's when I'm adding in the heavy cream, the vanilla, and some lemon zest. And then I'm just continue to whip that until I get these stiff peaks. It's almost exactly the same way I make my tiramisu cream. Over here, I have my lady fingers that are a lot more chunkier than I thought they were gonna be, so I had to sort of go in and cut them into half. I'm also layering the base of the cake with some other lady fingers. They're a lot smaller and they have this like sugary coating on top, so I thought they'd be really good. On top of these lady fingers, I'm adding my whipped cream mixture, just covering it all up before lining up my trimmed cookies around the side. And so you get this sort of like lady finger hedge. Going back to the strawberries, you can see just how much juice it has released. And this is a juice I'm using to dip my ladyfinger cookies in, so they're kind of like soaking up that lemony strawberry flavor. So then I can layer them on top of the whipped cream and another layer of cream on top before I'm adding in my strained strawberries. And then it's really just building layers. So after the strawberries, I'm adding on my cookie trimmings again, my cream mixture, just trying to smooth it out completely before letting it set in the fridge. I also wrapped it up in cling wrap, which is why it looks kind of crazy right now. I opted for this cake ring instead of a cake pan just for ease of removal. And once again, we are here hoping that it's gonna be all right. Oh my gosh, hello? What is happening? Oh, I feel like it needs like a little warm up situation. Oh, it's coming, it's coming. Oh, woo! All right, here it is. I know it looks not great at the bottom, but it stayed in shape. The most important thing is that it's actually standing up just fine. I'm gonna see if I can find like a ribbon to tie around. Cut up some strawberries and we're just gonna line it up down here. Hide the imperfections, see if it works. Put it on here. Just gonna try to do that around this. Almost there. Oh, we fixed the issue. Now it's covered. Tie this up right here. Impressions are important at the ton. It's like a little present. This is what it looks like so far. I'm gonna top it off with more strawberries and mint. And the final showstopper will be complete. Woo! This looks crazy. This is Bridgerton, and Bridgerton is just a lot of flair. Looks like a Featherington wanting to be a Bridgerton. It's so over the top. I love it. This is my actual showstopper, everybody. Crazy. Actually, it could be a hat, no? This looks so good. I don't even know how I can store this in the fridge right now. And the day is just flying by. Thank God it's summer. I still have a lot of daylight, but I severely underestimated just how much time it takes to prepare an afternoon tea, even with the week-long preparation. I'm sure at the Bridgerton house they have plenty of cooks helping them, but unfortunately for me, I am both the cook and the host. This better be the afternoon tea of a lifetime. Full steam ahead. We have finally made it into the savory category. We're gonna start it off with another recipe from the book, Kippers on Toast. So even though I think this is normally a breakfast toast, I thought it'd be fun to include because kippers, as mentioned here, are a favorite among ambitious mamas of the ton because there may be fertility benefits to consuming kippers. You know, the ton and marriage prospects and having an heir and all that. It just seems like a fun one to throw in there. Fertility toasts. Kitchen mode on. Here's everything I have for the white fish salad. I have some chopped dill here, some celery, these home pickled shallots that I actually very quickly did yesterday, mayo here, English mustard, and these kippers. When I was at the British specialty store, I actually couldn't find kippers. I was talking to the owners and they said they actually weren't able to import them anymore, unfortunately, and I feel like they were talking about like maybe the frozen or the fresh version, but I found this canned version at Whole Foods, so I'm excited to try it. I've never had kippers before. I'm gonna start by opening this up. Ooh, it smells super fishy, but here you have the kippers. As the recipe calls, I'm gonna flake it. See if I can, you know, tear it up slightly. It actually also says on the package here that it is a great substitute for tuna. As somebody who likes tuna a lot, that's delightful. I feel like it's slightly chewier than tuna, but I really like that smoked flavor. Ooh, this is really nice. I would honestly just eat this over rice. Now I'm just going to combine these together to make the salad. I wonder if it's a little ambitious to try to fit it all into this bowl. Squirt of this mustard, celery bits, dill bits. I thought I had capers and scallions at home, but I unfortunately don't, so I am missing that, but hopefully it will be okay. Some of this pickled juice in there. We just give it a good mix. Give it a little taste. Quite nice. Feels very refreshing. I'm hoping it will balance out the kippers. I actually really like this. The smoky flavor in there. I feel like it just adds like that extra umami. Just gonna go ahead and put this on some toast bread. There you go. A bit of shallots, some dill. Beautify it. Might not be as much of a looker, but they taste pretty dang good. This is the one item that I think I'm gonna just like eat right now because I am hungry. I understand now why you really have to crisp up the bread because it holds very well even under the salad. You get the crispiness, you get the savoriness, especially when you eat it together with all these other sweets. Oh, lovely. This was the sustenance I needed. Thank you. Thank you. Time to move on to our next savory item after this last bite. Okay. Whew. We're so close. Second to last food item. And the next savory item I'm going to do is also from the book, crumpets. Crumpet is a small round bread cooked on a griddle, which is very similar to what Americans call English muffins. There's this one shot in the show that I could have sworn they were mini crumpets, but maybe I'm wrong. They really just look like English muffins, don't they? They're soft and spongy with just the right number of craggy pockets to catch butter and jam. How delightful is that? Also, this recipe specifically calls to eat it with salted honey butter, which sounds amazing. The process for making these crumpets are a little more tedious, I would say, but you know me, I love bread. I had to try. So I got started on crumpets earlier this week. So the first thing I did was to melt some butter before I added in some milk and also some water. And essentially, I'm just trying to keep it somewhat warm. And in another bowl, I'm combining some honey and some warm water, which is what I'm adding the yeast to. And this is sort of where the magic happens, because give it 2 minutes and boom. Look at how foamy that is. In another bowl, I'm combining my AP flour and my bread flour. To that, I'm adding in both the mixtures that I just made and just like continuously whisking it until it's all combined. And it is a little thinner than I had thought it was going to be, but that's the idea. Because after letting this mixture sit aside for about like 45 minutes, you can see that it's almost like slightly risen. It's a little foamy, it's a little bubbly on top. And to that, I'm whisking in some baking powder and a little bit of salt and rest again for another 20 minutes. And now that the batter is ready, it is time to cook it up. And this process honestly took a lot more time. Sue did say that she tested this for about, I think, 8 times or more. First of all, you need these round molds. I only had 2 of them, so I could only make 2 at once. I did try to do a batch without the molds. They thinned out so much and they didn't have that sort of like floof you want. Anyways, I gave up on the irregular crumpets fairly quickly, and I just went back to making them in the molds. For the cooking process itself, you actually have to like fiddle with the heat quite a bit. I feel like that took up hours. So if you wanted to give this one a try, just reserve the time for it. Crumpets also don't keep really well, so after I made them, I popped them into the freezer immediately after they cooled down. Here's the bag of crumpets I have. These are the round shaped ones, like this one that I'm holding. The bubbles in there, a lot more height to them versus this very crazy looking thin one. I'm gonna go ahead and toast those crumpets up. While they're cooking, I will make the salted honey butter. So salted honey butter really is just, well, salt, honey, butter. So fairly soft and ready to go. I'm just going to drizzle on my honey. Can't go wrong with honey and butter. A bit of salt. That's it. Along with the butter though, I actually also got these 2 things that I thought would accompany them very well. One is this fig and honey chutney, and then I also found this jar of clotted cream. So I will plate that up with the crumpets once it's ready to serve. Now onto the last food item of the day. I couldn't make afternoon tea without making cucumber sandwich. I feel like that is the iconic English afternoon tea little bite. When I was reading up about the origins of cucumber sandwich, it is so interesting to hear about how cucumbers were not a commonplace like grocery store item. Back in those days, to cultivate them, you actually needed a greenhouse, and you're not gonna have a greenhouse unless you're upper class, I guess. And so that's how cucumbers became like a symbol of wealth. Isn't that so wild? And then it's also like the way they prepare these cucumber sandwiches, because the cucumber has to be so thin, the sandwiches have to be so precisely cut, that thin layer of butter, everything is like very meticulous and about attention to detail. That's how cucumbers became like a symbol of elegance. So next time you're eating cucumber sandwiches, anyways, I'm gonna try and make as elegant of an English cucumber sandwich as I possibly can. The most important thing is to remove the crust. There you go. How lightly is lightly. Because essentially you're just trying to keep the bread from soaking up the moisture of the cucumber. So it's almost like protecting the bread a little bit. Totally covered. The trick to getting those thin layers is to use a peeler. See how they become paper thin? Nice little hack, right? Just paper thin cucumber. Now we can just layer it back on here. Super precise. Closes back in. Our first 2 cucumber sandwich. It's crazy guys, it's so simple. But I guess back then this was the thing. That should complete our entire food list. Oh my goodness. The menu is almost complete. And I say almost because the food is done. but we do still have the drinks. One of them is going to be a pot of tea. I even bought this most British looking tea I could find. Somebody from the UK, please tell me what this means on the very top, by appointment to the Prince of Wales. Does it mean something? This was also like $13 tea. So I don't know. I'm just excited to try. But the other drink I'll be making is the iconic Bridgerton lemonade. I feel like this is like the only thing I see them drinking ever. I was fascinated. I had to look it up to see if it was really a thing. And believe it or not, lemonade back then was actually sort of like the trendy drink. It was like the espresso martini. Alcohol back then wasn't a thing as much for ladies, but you know, you get thirsty and instead of water, people would go for lemonade. The lemonade back then had a little more notes of like orange blossom and almond. So to achieve that effect, I got this orgeat syrup. It's made with finely ground roasted almonds, cane sugar, and orange flower water, which is kind of perfect for our purposes. So let me whip up some lemonade real quick, and we should almost be set for tea. It's just 3 ingredients: syrup, the lemon juice, and the sparkling water. Just going for 1-to-1 ratio here. Nice little mix. Ooh. Stir. Picked a couple of slices in of lemon. There it is, our lemonade. What a day. Finally, time to set the table. I'm going to place everything out. We're gonna get the full afternoon tea spread. I'm gonna go change and we can finally sip some tea and relax. This is the entire spread behind me. I have also changed already back to the original dress. I went a little crazy and I think this is way too much for one person. So I'm actually gonna give my friends a call, invite them over so we can have some proper English afternoon tea together. Drink some tea, share some tea. I'm gonna go steep some tea and get ready to finally dig in. And that's a wrap on Bridgerton Foods for 24 hours. Took a long time. You're super stuffed. Would I say it was worth it? Honestly, I think it's fun. If there are 2 things I would pick for you to try, it would be the Kipper's Toast, which was a crowd favorite, and then the Ladyfinger cake. Something about the magic of Ladyfingers that just soaks up the juice and makes it fluffy like a sponge cake. Very good. Hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around if you would like to see more, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
On your marks, get set, break!